Hare Krishna. So now I'm starting with Govinda Dasera Kadaca study session. With grass in his teeth, folding his hands, the Lord spoke. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke. Everyone, hear my ordinary words. Listen, all wealthy people. The world is like a gypsy's magic. Overwhelmed by sleep, you climb on a throne and think you are a king. You consider hundreds of people to be your friends. Hundreds of thousands of citizens come and offer gifts. You never think, what is it all? What is all this? This is a shadow of a reflection. Ignorance in the material world. The material world is a reflection of Krishna Tattva. The Vedas say it is a reflected dream. Understand there are two dreams. The only difference is that one is while sleeping and the other is while in a waking state. Being a king is a dream in the waking state. One is sleeping and the other is while in a waking state. Being a king is a dream in the waking state. The Vedas say that this is really an illusion. One understand there are two dreams. The only difference is that one is while sleeping and the other is while in a waking state. Being a king is a dream in the waking state. The Vedas say that this is really an illusion. Gold, silver, gems, and pearls are transformations of earth. The entity to be respected is Krishna. This is the real meaning. The Vedas say that Bhagavan is the eternal entity. The entity to be respected is Krishna. This is the real meaning. The Vedas say that Bhagavan is the eternal entity. Everything else you see is false. How can the person who's sinking in water see the entity on the bank? If you come out of the water to the bank, then you can see the object up close. How can the person absorbed in material objects see Radha and Krishna? The person whose eyes are covered by the blinkers of Maya is always blind, like a bull at the grinding wheel. Who knows what is in the mountain cave? Who knows from outside what is the truth? In this way, who can understand in a practical way the subtle nature of the material world? The form of the Lord is the unlimited universe. The form of the Lord is the unlimited universe. The person who understands this gives up karma kanda. When you give up material thinking and become spiritual, you see the form of Krishna. The independent will of Krishna has given Shakti to the material world. The person who has bhakti can see this. Matter and the jiva are tied together. One who crosses the shore is freed from rajas and tamas. Who can cross the condition of the material world? One remains rotating like an ox at the oil mill. One remains rotating like an ox at the oil mill. The ox is on a small, narrow path, going in a circle and falls into difficulty. Or like the ox that walks on one path with blinkers on his eyes, going round, around, and around. Like the ox that walks on one path with blinkers on his eyes, going around and around, the jiva rotates in terrifying samsara, wearing blinkers of Maya. The jiva rotates in terrifying samsara, wearing blinkers of Maya. For this reason, the jiva cannot see the subtle truth. The jiva rotates in terrifying samsara, wearing blinkers of maya. For this reason, the jiva cannot see the subtle truth. For this reason, the jiva cannot see the subtle truth. As long as the jiva seeks others' material objects and others' wives, as long as the jiva seeks others' material objects and others' wives, how can he achieve Krishna? The Vedas say that Krishna is the unchanging tattva. The Vedas say that Krishna is the unchanging tattva. One cannot understand him with a changeable mind. In this way, the Lord made many places fortunate. My merciful Chaitanya ran to Jaleshwara. At Jaleshwara, there was a deity of Shiva called Bilveshwara. Seeing that deity, Bhakti arose within the Lord. There was one sannyasi in the Shiva temple. The Lord approached him slowly. Facing the sannyasi, he offered respects. Seeing the Lord, the sannyasi was surprised. He said, "Who are you? You're not an ordinary man. Why do you offer respects to me? By what piety do I see you today? Seeing you, my bondage has been severed. You are the result of austerity. O merciful one, seeing you, all sin is destroyed." Gazing at the Lord, the sannyasi began weeping and his voice choked up in prema. Gazing at the Lord, the sannyasi began weeping and his voice choked up in prema. At that moment, my Lord hid his form, and saying, Hari, raised his arms and began dancing. Saying Krishna, he jumped, stood, and sometimes fell on the ground with choked voice. There were many people in Nama Sankirtana. Chaitanya stayed awake and passed the night. The next day, he went to the Suvarnarekha river. He saw Raghunath Dasa, whose hairs were standing on end. We then went to Hariharapura. There, Nimai became mad with the name of the Lord. Dancing and dancing, he was without awareness and fell on the ground with force. In this way, the day passed. Intoxicated with bliss, the Lord began crying. Intoxicated with bliss, the Lord began crying. Intoxicated with bliss, the Lord began crying. The next day, he went to Baleshwara, seeing Gopala there. The Lord was filled with bliss. The next day, we went to Nilagada. The next day, we went to Baleshwara, seeing Gopala there. The Lord was filled with bliss. Seeing Gopala there, the Lord was filled with bliss. The next day, we went to Nilagada. Going there, Nimai became mad with the name. Dancing, he became unconscious. Uncountable people came, singing and singing the name. The bliss increased. Becoming unconscious, the Lord fell on the ground. Becoming unconscious, the Lord fell on the ground. In this way, the devotees together became intoxicated with the experience of the highest bliss. In this way, the devotees together became intoxicated In this way, the devotees together became intoxicated with the experience of the highest bliss. The next day, the Lord went to the bank of Vaitarani. In this way, the devotees together became intoxicated with the experience of the highest bliss. The next day, the Lord went to the bank of Vaitarani river. Weeping, he said, "Oh Krishna, please cross." Choked with prema, his body extended, saying, Hari went, not seeing the surroundings. He went, not seeing the surroundings. The next day, we crossed Mahanadi. On the road, we saw the deity of Gopinatha. we saw Mahanadi. On the road, we saw the deity of Gopinatha. Everyone received Gopinatha's Mahaprasada. Taking the prasada, bliss rose in the mind. Wanting to see Sakshi Gopala, everyone began walking with great attraction. Saying Hari, raising their hands, they ran. The ground became mud because of their tears. Seeing Sakshi Gopala from a distance, the ground became mud because of their tears. Seeing Sakshi Gopala from a distance, the Lord choked with prema and fell on the ground. Seeing Sakshi Gopala from a distance, the Lord choked with prema and fell on the ground. Seeing the deity, what did he think? Seeing the face of the deity, he began crying. Repeatedly he called out Gopala, Gopala, who can describe the force of his prema? Repeatedly he called out Gopala, Gopala, who can describe the force of his prema? Then going to Nimraja's temple, the Lord began crying. How can it be described? Leaving Nimraja, we went to Athar Nala. How can it be described? Leaving Nimraja, we went to Atharanala. Seeing the flag, the Lord held on to me. Seeing the flag, the Lord held on to me. I have not seen such a flood of tears. The Lord made the earth into mud by the river of his tears. Seeing the flag, the Lord held on to me. Leaving Nimraja, we went to Atharnala. Seeing the flag, the Lord held on to me. I have not seen such a flood of tears. The Lord made the earth into mud by the river of his tears. Saying, O Prabhu Jagannatha, he flooded the earth with torrents of tears falling on the ground. He cried at the top of his voice. He embraced whomever he saw in front of him. Look, my Krishna dances as a coward. What beauty is in his hair. Seeing the Lord's temple, he cried loudly. And as we're seeing the Lord's temple, he cried loudly. Sometimes he fell on the ground in lamentation, running quickly. His body became covered with dust at the gate. Because of the flowing tears, he could not see the deity. He fell on the ground, shouted, and rolled about. Hundreds of thousands of people came to see his bhava. With great difficulty, the Lord stopped his flow of prema. Hundreds of thousands of people came to see his bhava. With great difficulty, the Lord stopped his flow of prema. Seeing the Lord, Mahavishnu rose up weeping. The devotees came running at the astonishing sound of weeping. Seeing the Lord, Mahavishnu rose up weeping. The devotees came running at the astounding sound of weeping. The devotees came running at the astonishing sound of weeping. Gadadhara placed him on his lap. Coming to the Garuda Stamba, holding on to it, he cut his forehead. Blood flowed. Seeing this, Dhyanapuri gave his upper cloth and wiped away the Lord's blood. Having seen Jagannatha in a group, they went to Mishra's house. Staying some days in Puri in this way, the Lord experienced newer and newer happiness constantly. Nityananda, Krishnadasa, and Haridasa experienced the greatest bliss with the Lord. Puri became filled with the sound of the name all day and night. All were on the ground with choked voices. Some wore garlands on their limbs and some smeared sandalwood. Some arranged for offering food. Gradually, everyone came and assembled. Puri surpassed glorious Vaikunta. Puri surpassed glorious Vaikunta. The Brahmana Krishnadasa, along with pot-bellied Shyamadasa, protected the Lord on two sides. The Brahmana Krishnadasa, along with pot-bellied Shyamadasa, protected the Lord on two sides. Sometimes he fell down, intoxicated with prema. Sometimes he jumped into the ocean. Premadasa and Gopidasa Mohanta Brahmana showered nectar in reciting Bhagavatam. Premadasa and Gopidasa Mohanta Brahmana showered nectar in reciting Bhagavatam. Raghunatha Dasa, Chandrasekhara, Damodara, Narahari and Gadadhara always went together surrounding Chaitanya to the temple, without interruption. Without interruption, there were sweet mridangas playing and sometimes kartalas as he became intoxicated with the name. Without interruption, there was sweet mridangas playing and sometimes kartalas as he became intoxicated with the name. In this way, my Lord always experienced bliss in Mishra's house with the devotees. In this way, my Lord always experienced bliss in Mishra's house with the devotees. Kashi Mishra always brought plenty of prasada and fed Chaitanya. In this way, my Lord always experienced bliss in Mishra's house with the devotees. Kashi Mishra always brought plenty of prasada and fed Chaitanya. It attracted the heart by its mere fragrance. He filled his stomach with fried and roasted items and various amounts of prasada. There was excellent fried chickpeas, crushed moong dal, and fine sesame, linseed, wheat, and barley, and fine sesame, linseed, wheat, and barley. There were hundreds of fruits and roots and scraped coconut. The Lord constantly took these in his hand and offered them. There was chinachura, kuramara, laddu, and gaja, amdasa, pishtaka, puli, rasapura gaja, ghee-soaked rice, bhuta, ghanta, and betoshaka. He accepted all this prasada and left nothing. In silence, he always ate, filling his stomach fully. He ate till his stomach swelled. In this way, days passed. Gradually, all the devotees began coming. He ate till his stomach swelled. In this way, days passed. Gradually, all the devotees began coming. Gradually, all the devotees began coming. Shankara Bharati, Parananda Puri, Shankara Bharati, Parananda Puri, Damodara Swami, Pradyumna Brahmachari, Chidananda Giri, and Premananda Saraswati would always accompany the Lord. Many devotees met together and worshipped at Puri with great joy. At this time, Sarvabhauma made his appearance. Many devotees came and met with him. Seeing Mahavishnu, the Lord had great attraction. Repeatedly, the Lord offered respects with devotion. The Lord fainted on seeing Govinda. He remained there as if dead. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was at that place. Taking him on his lap, he went to his house. He performed many services for Chaitanya. His bhakti rasa grew. Finally, the Lord gave him bhakti. The Lord desired to travel to the south. For 3 months, Chaitanya stayed in Puri with Nityananda. On the 7th Tithi of Vaishakha, he traveled south, floating in Prema Rasa. When he was about to travel, worried Nityananda said with humility and devotion, "Do not go alone, go together with us." Gadadhara, Premananda Saraswati, Bharati, and Shankara were ready to go with him. Hearing this, my Lord smiled and said, I will go alone, not taking anyone. Hearing those words, Nityananda said while shedding tears, when you go traveling south far away, go with Krishnadasa Brahmana. Being pure, the Brahmana will do whatever you tell him. How can I remain giving you up? Then everyone said, we will all go with you. Hearing this, Mahaprabhu smiled slightly and prevented them. He gave instructions to them all. After hearing him, they all said, Govinda Dasa will go with you. After hearing him, they all said, Govinda Dasa will go with you. Hearing this, the Lord smiled at me slightly. I like Govinda's association. Govinda will go where others will not. Govinda will do work for me. I like Govinda's association. Govinda will go where others will not. Govinda will do work for me. Saying this, the Lord bid farewell and traveled south. Govinda will go where others will not. Govinda will do work for me. Saying this, the Lord bid farewell and traveled south. All the devotees pursued him. Saying this, the Lord bid farewell and traveled south. All the devotees pursued him. Eventually, we all came softly to the temple of Alalanatha. Alalanatha. Seeing the deity, the Lord's emotions increased. He moistened the earth with his tears. Dancing and dancing, the Lord became unconscious and fell to the ground with force. At dawn the next day, he bid farewell to all. 3 men went on the southern tour. 3 men went on the southern tour. Sarvabhauma this time said softly, meet Raya on the bank of the Godavari. Ramananda is the best devotee who knows rasa. Because of Krishna's name, his eyes are always filled with tears. Ramananda experiences pure bliss. He experiences bliss within because of the Lord's name. He experiences bliss within because of the Lord's name. Hearing this, the Lord rushed to the bank of the Godavari. At that place, Ramananda came and met him. Seeing the new sannyasi, his bhakti arose. Grasping his feet, Ramananda began weeping. He said, you are the Lord. I am most fortunate to see you. The Lord said, O Raya, please speak about Krishna. The pain in my heart will disappear by your conclusions. Ramananda said, Oh Lord, I know nothing. If you do make me speak, I cannot speak. If you do not make me speak, I cannot speak. Residing in the heart, you do everything. A mute person by your mercy becomes eloquent. The Lord said, by what tattva does the mind become pure? Raya said that tattva is association with devotees. I want to know the fine tattva in this. The Lord said, by what tattva does the mind become pure? Raya said, that tattva is association with devotees. I want to know the fine tattva in this. Raya said, other than renunciation, there's no tattva. The Lord said, the fine tattva is attraction. Raya said, higher than that is prema bhakti. The Lord said, please say more of the essence, O intelligent one. Raya said, the essence of everything is having rasa. Oh Ramananda, I want to speak more about the essence. At that time, the Lord lowered his head. He said, ghee exists hidden in milk. The person who churns attains the taste. Oh Raya, I do not know anything. Speak about Krishna. I will hear from your mouth. You are a detached Vaishnava, Ramananda. Speak Krishna Tattva and soothe my heart. Hearing the Lord's words, Ramananda with humility folded his 2 hands and spoke, Oh Lord, why do you deceive the world? Be merciful and make me your servant. You have spread Bhakti Rasa in many places. Mercifully, you have purified this earth. O Jagannatha, Be merciful to this fallen person. Give detachment in my heart. Accept me to be with you. Hearing this, the Lord embraced Ramananda. Kneeling, Ramananda wept. Tears flooded his chest. Seeing this, with choked voice, the Lord spoke. You are the best of devotees of O Ramananda. Lowering his head, Ramananda said, Rama, Rama. The Lord said, you are most fortunate, O Ramananda. Your auspicious talks on bhakti cannot be described. Ramananda said, I am a most fallen rascal. You have been contaminated by touching me. Mercifully forgive this offense. Dwell in my heart and give a taste for bhakti. Ramananda and the Lord passed the night speaking in this manner. The next day, Ramananda held the Lord's feet. Bidding farewell, he departed to do his work. The Lord said, I will go, you go to Puri and stay with me. You, I, and Sarvabhama alone will discuss Krishna Tattva, giving relief to our lives. Saying this, the Lord bid farewell to Raya and offering respects. Ramananda went to his house. I have not included in this book 100th of what Raya discussed with the Lord. In this way, I have not included in this book 100th of what Raya discussed with the Lord. In this way, Ramananda for 10 days came and was blissful. Seeing the sannyasi of Nadia, the Lord seeing Ramananda was very pleased. Seeing the Lord, Ramananda became unconscious. Bidding farewell to Raya, the Lord entered Trimanda. Many Buddhists lived in Trimanda town. Many Buddhists lived in Trimanda town. They all came and met Gaurasundara. Unconscious. Bidding farewell to Raya, the Lord entered Trimanda. Many Buddhists lived in Trimanda town. They all came and met Gaurasundara. The Lord discussed with the Buddhists. The king of Trimanda came and acted as a referee. The Buddhists accepted defeat in the deliberation. All the spectators began to laugh. They all said, this sannyasi is not human. A human cannot speak what he discussed. The head of the Buddhists, Ramagiri Raya, offered respects and said, show the path to me. You are not a human being. O young sannyasi, I would like to remain with you. I was a great learned man in the world. Mercifully show the path of bhakti to me. Laughing, Chaitanya mercifully spoke, you are most intelligent. Ramagiri Raya, the person who chants the name of the Lord with hair standing on end is most intelligent. That is the method. Hearing the Lord's words, Ramagiri Raya immediately fell on the ground. Falling at the Lord's feet, Ramagiri said, you are merciful to speak to a low person. Dwelling in all jivas, you see all jivas. Mercifully give your red feet to me. Bhakti manifested in Ramagiri, the Pashanda. Seeing this, my Lord became filled with bliss. All the greatest Buddhist scholars went on the path of Ramagiri. The young sannyasi defeated all their arguments. Seeing this, Ramagiri looked in the four directions. Finally, a resident of Tungabhadra, Dundi Ramatirtha, desiring debate came. Thinking himself learned, intoxicated with pride, this Jnani could not understand the path of bhakti by dry logic. Dundi Rama was a learned man. He discussed but became full of fear. Dundi Rama Swami coming to deliberate rolled on the ground repeatedly with tears in his eyes. Dundi Ramaswamy, coming to deliberate, rolled on the ground repeatedly with tears in his eyes. Rolled on the ground repeatedly with tears in his eyes. The Lord said, listen. The Lord said, listen, Dundi Ramaswamy, I will secretly write a letter saying that I was defeated in debating with you. Chaitanya was defeated in your place. By the mercy of Saraswati, you are a great scholar. Who can defeat you in the scriptures of logic? You are qualified with logic, Sankhya, Patanjali Yoga, and with logic, Sankhya, Patanjali Yoga, and Vedanta philosophies, with all scriptures. Being a foolish sannyasi, I know nothing. Repeatedly, I am defeated in your presence. Formerly, you were a great scholar in Dundi. Your learning was famous in the world. Saying this, he bid farewell to Dundi Rama. Looking in the four directions, Dundi did not want him to go. Looking here and there, he rolled at the Lord's feet. Having been purified in mind, the Lord gave bhakti to the Pashanda Dundi. Remembering the Lord, Gauranga went to Pantaguha. Gauranga went to Pantaguha. Dundi Rama became famous as a servant of the Lord. The learned spoke many stories about him. The Lord, famous as a servant of the Lord, the learned spoke many stories about him. The Lord called me while laughing. I was carrying 2 wooden shoes on my shoulders. Whatever goods were there, the shoes and begging bowl, whatever Ramananda had given, I gathered together. There was a banyan tree very far away called Akshaya. In the evening, the Lord arrived there. Shiva called Vateshwara resided there. The Lord ran there with devotion. With devotion, the Lord offered respects to Vateshwara. He passed the night there without eating. In the morning, he went to take bath. I went from door to beg food. Begging, I returned at noon. I then cooked and served Gauranga. I accepted prasada equal to nectar. At that time, a wealthy man of the Tirtha came there. He came with 2 prostitutes to see him, to test the seriousness of his sannyasa. The 2 prostitutes named Satyabai and Lakshmi Bai came to the Lord and spoke. On the instructions of the wealthy man, the 2 made many arrangements. The 2 made many arrangements to understand the Lord. Tirtha Rama, the wealthy man, spoke various subjects. The effulgence of the sannyasi took away their pretense. Lakshmi and Satyabai, while laughing, made various gestures. Smiling, Satyabai sat next to the Lord. She opened her bodice to show her breasts. The Lord addressed her as mother. At the Lord's words, Satya began to tremble. Seeing this, Lakshmi became afraid. The Lord's mind was not at all agitated. She fled and Satyabai fell at his feet. She fled and Satyabai fell at his feet. Oh, mother, you make me an offender. Saying only this, the Lord fell on the ground. His hair became loose and he became covered with dust. His body quivered violently with prema. He became all disheveled. Where did Lakshmi and Satya go? They were not seen again. The Lord began dancing, saying, Hari, Hari. His hair stood on end and he shed profuse tears. His kaupina and other cloth fell off. Naked he danced, breathing deeply. He fell on the ground, not aware of the thorns. The cluster of garlands fell from his throat. Having not eaten, he was flesh and bone. Blood oozed from his thin limbs. Intoxicated with the name, Gauranga danced. Astonishing effulgence emanated from his limbs. Seeing this, the wealthy person became amazed and fell at his feet in surrender. Though he pressed the Lord's feet, the Lord was unaware. Saying Hari with raised hands, he danced and walked forward. Holding Satya in his arms, he said, Chant the name of the Lord. Say Hari, O Praneshwara, Mukunda, Murari. Where is the Lord? Where is Mukunda? Where is Murari? Seeing the Lord's ecstasy, everyone became unconscious, intoxicated with the name. The Lord had no external consciousness. Bending his shoulders, he fell down, his pranas being afflicted, saliva flowed from his mouth, his limbs were covered with dust. He was naked, his hair stood on end, and his eyes were closed. Seeing his bhava, many Buddhists said, Hari, Hari. Hearing this, Gauranga's eyes flowed with tears. The tears flowed out as if from a syringe. Seeing this, Tirtharama began crying. He said, I'm a big Pashanda, O Lord, mercifully give me Harinama. Embracing Tirtharama, the Pashanda, the Lord said, O Tirtharama, you are a gentleman. I have become pure by your presence. You are the chief devotee. He said this many times. The wealthy Tirtharama fell at his feet, overwhelmed. He cried and cried. When Bhakti arose as he cried, suddenly the Lord took his hand and embraced him. The Lord said, consider wealth to be like grass. Then you will receive the priceless jewel of Bhakti, the greatest wealth. Consider wealth to be like grass. Then you will receive the priceless jewel of Bhakti, the greatest wealth. Throw far away clothing and ornaments. Reject temporary wealth and worship the eternal wealth, for you will repeatedly receive pain. I advise you to become desireless. The body which you find attractive is just covered by skin. In a few days, it will rot. When the prana flies from the body like a bird, it becomes insects, ashes, or stool. There's no greatness in wealth in the three worlds. The only greatness is in worshipping the Lord. Knowing the fickle nature of wealth, reject it completely and keep it far away. Having faith in the Lord, bring the Lord close. There's no need to speak further proof. Unlimited universes are the proof. The learned person does not need to see the proof. He does not see the goal in many arguments. He does not see the goal in many arguments. Bring Krishna with the faith of a sadhaka. Bring Krishna with the faith of a sadhaka. What is the use in discussing many scriptures? Having faith, worship Krishna. The person proud of wealth brings suffering to himself day by day. The person who desires respect and glorifies it cannot prevent suffering. He thinks in terms of this is me and this is mine. Closing his eyes, he does not see a second person or another's possessions. He sees others falsely as his relatives. He grieves for a dead body, which is like a broken doll. Everyone knows that the son is born from a father. The Vedas do not say that the two hearts are one. If the son dies, this does not accomplish the father's death. The son is born from the mother's body, but know for certain that the bodies of the two are not one. No one possesses anything. This is the essential ascertainment. That need not be proved by any proof. The Lord is the object of proof and he is the proof. The proof is present in the heart of a human. A foolish person knows the Lord from very far off. From knowing the Lord close up, a person is considered a jnani. I've spoken the essential tattva as explained in the Veda. One does not seek it in the world of fools. The person who knows all the true tattvas does not die again and again. Hearing all this from the Lord's mouth, Tirtharama gave up all attachment to matter and chanted the name of the Lord. The Lord became intoxicated with Sankirtana. Eventually his associates gathered. Wealthy Tirtharama became distressed. The Pashanda spoke to him. Tirtharama gave up material items, considering them to be like grass, and spreading his arms to dance, saying the name of the Lord. Putting on tilaka, donning a kaupina, performing bhakti, delivered the fallen and deprived. Where hearing this, his wife crying rushed there immediately. Holding her husband's feet, she began weeping. Tirtharama did not hear her words. Her name was Kamala Kumari. She was very beautiful and spread effulgence in all directions. Holding her hands, he said, "Oh Kamala, I've given all my wealth to you. I've been delivered from hell. You may enjoy all this material wealth." Hearing this, Kamala Kumari fell upon the ground. Seeing the net of Kamala's Maya, Tirtharama smiled slightly and said, Chant the Lord's net of Kamala's Maya. Titrama smiled slightly and said, chant the Lord's name. Weeping Kamalukumari left and Tita became a beggar on the road. Having delivered Titrama, Gauranga left Siddha Vateshwara. Many people brought many clothes, but the Lord did not accept one. He shouted Govinda and finally hit me on the back. Having spent 7 days in Vateshwara, let's go to Nandishwara. Hearing this, putting the shoes on my shoulders, I went with the Lord, leaving Vateshwara. Going on the path, I saw a huge jungle and my mind became disturbed. The jungle was 10 kroshas in breadth. How will I cross this forest? I thought. The Lord, as my antaryami, slightly laughed. The Lord went in front. I was behind him. In this way, I went on the path. By his desire, I had no fear. In the forest, there were some animals living. He did not look at any of them in front or behind. Crossing the jungle, he sat at the base of a tree near Munna town, desiring to take rest. Two householders living in Munna approached. They brought and gave some flour with great care. The Lord did not comment whether this was good or bad. The two men sat near the Lord. Eventually, the two looked at the young sannyasi, but he did not glance once at them. In the evening, there was big confusion. People of the town came in droves to see. Effulgence flowed from the Lord's limbs like fire. Seeing this, everyone was astonished. The people of Munna eventually approached and each came and offered respects. They spoke with devotion. Come into the town and leave the base of this tree. Not hearing their words, my Lord was mad with prema. Internally, he was saying the Lord's name and continually weeping. As the emotion swelled within, he suddenly stood up and began dancing. He fell on the ground saying, hurry. With him, the people of the town became joyful. Clapping their hands, they all began dancing. Seeing that the Lord began crying, any Pashanda who saw him developed bhakti in his mind. In this way, half the night passed. Everyone danced saying, Hari, Hari. In this way, half the night passed. Everyone danced saying, Hari, Hari. Finally, from their families, the women came to see Gauranga at that place. Seeing the beauty of Gauranga, the women could not leave. He has such a bright face. Seeing the sannyasi, their prana became unsteady. Oh, sister, I've never seen such a handsome young man. Chaitanya spoke to them. This body of bones and skin will die without eating. Why do you tie up your hair at this age? Weeping, overwhelmed, tears flowed from his eyes. In this way, the night passed. He did not sleep. Weeping, overwhelmed, tears flowed from his eyes. In this way, the night passed. He did not sleep. In the morning, the Lord rose and went south. The crowd of people of Munna told him to stay. My Lord would not hear of any obstruction. One woman of the place, suffering greatly, wept at the base of the tree. When the Lord was about to go, the old woman begged food and clothing. She owned torn cloth and had no food in her stomach. Chaitanya stood there looking at her. Seeing her condition, the Lord understood in his mind. He begged while smiling slightly. He said, oh, brothers, Munna inhabitants, give alms to me. When I receive the food and clothing, I'll depart. The residents of Munna, men and women, floated in bliss. They brought and gave heaps of food and clothing. Looking at him, they said it was supplies of the journey. For this reason, they brought heaps of goods over when they gave the clothing to the Lord. Seeing the bustle, the Lord began to laugh. They said, there's nothing as valuable as this cloth. Oh, Chaitanya, first take my cloth. No one could understand the mind of the Lord. Thus they busily brought food and cloth. The Lord spoke, listen, people of Munna, I accept your offering. There is a grieving woman living at the base of the tree. Give all the food and clothing to her. Seeing this merciful nature, they were all astonished. Someone said, I have brought alms for this old woman. The Lord put on his cloth and left while chanting the Lord's name. Giving me an indication, he glanced at me. Taking the bowl and the wooden shoes, I followed behind. Many people started walking together. The Lord did not look back. All the people returned home one by one. Ramananda Swami could not give up his association. Ramananda Swami had great conduct. Privately, I asked him about himself. Ramananda said, "Oh brother, seeing the Lord, my hard heart has melted. If the Lord does not accept me as his disciple, then I will give up my life, not staying in this world." Looks like that I'm just describing this footnote 2. Looks like this section about Ramananda Swami should come after a few paragraphs. Then my Lord arrived at Venkata town at the 2 praharas of the day. At that place, there was one scholar with no equal in Vedanta knowledge. Then my Lord arrived at Venkata town at 2 praharas of the day. At that place, there was one scholar with no equal in Vedanta knowledge. This best This best of scholars wanted to deliberate. The Lord replied, "I have been defeated." The scholar did not give up the attempt to debate. With smiling face, the Lord laughed. With smiling face, the Lord laughed. No matter how much the Swami presented Advaita Vada, Chaitanya presented Dvaita. No matter how much the Swami presented Advaita Vadas, Chaitanya presented Dvaita. Finally, the debate became fierce. Eventually, the Sannyasi Swami admitted defeat. This great scholar's name was Ramananda. He was consecrated with the name of the Lord. He heard the sweetness of the Lord's name. Bhakti arose in the Swami's mind. Then Ramananda Swami offered respects and with Chaitanya's permission went to his ashrama. Then Ramananda Swami offered respects and with Chaitanya's permission he was consecrated with the name of the Lord. He heard the sweetness of the Lord's name. Bhakti arose in the Swami's mind. Then Ramananda Swami offered respects and with Chaitanya's permission went to his ashrama. He gave the Lord's name to all his disciples. Their minds became intoxicated with Bhakti Rasa. The Lord stayed in Venkatanagara for 3 days and gave the name sincerely to every house there. The Lord stayed in Venkatanagara for 3 days and gave the name sincerely to every house there. All the men and all the women became intoxicated with the name. All the men and all the women became intoxicated with the name. Chaitanya danced with them. All the men and all the women became intoxicated with the name. Chaitanya danced with them. Chaitanya danced with them. And then all the women became intoxicated with the name. Chaitanya danced with them. The boys and girls of the town and its wards became intoxicated. The boys and girls of the town and its wards became intoxicated. The boys and girls of the town and its wards became intoxicated. Who can count the number of people who came there? The Lord gave teachings on bhakti to all the people. The Lord gave teachings on bhakti to all the people. They fell at his feet unconscious for a long time. Teachings on bhakti to all the people. They fell at his feet unconscious for a long time. Seeing a Pashanda before him, the Lord embraced him. Embracing him, he said, Hari Hari. There was a dacoit named Panta Bhila. Hearing about him, the Lord went to him. Everyone said, oh, holy man, do not go there. He will kill you. He is most sinful and has no knowledge. After taking you, he will take another. Not listening to what anyone said, Chaitanya rushed to Panta Bhila at Vagula. Pantabhila lived in the forest called Vagula. When travelers arrived there, he would harass them. The Lord, not thinking of any obstacles in the fearful forest, went there to see it out of curiosity. I went behind him carrying the begging bowl. Chaitanya said nothing to me. When the Lord arrived, Panta welcomed him. Mahaprabhu remained there 3 days. The Lord said, oh Panta, you are a great devotee. Seeing you, all my sins have been destroyed. You do not live in house like a householder. You are the greatest devotee, a detached sannyasi. You're not an insect searching for material happiness like the householders. Your heart sees everything with satisfaction. You do not have a son, daughter, or wife. You're not mad after material enjoyment. You have no maya. Oh, fortunate Pantaraja. You're the best of devotees. Seeing you, living beings become joyful. You think of material wealth as grass. You can renounce everything. You do not live with young women. Thus I've come here fulfilling my desire. You're always surrounded by your students. Seeing you, my heart is joyful. Being magnanimous, you're not bound by the illusions of Maya. I consider you the best of devotees. Listening silently to this Lord's words, Bhila then offered respects with bhakti. Hearing from the Lord's mouth the name of the Lord repeatedly, he developed profuse bhakti in his mind. He rolled on the ground at the Lord's feet. The Lord embraced him and let him hear the name. All the dacoits became mad with the Lord's name. All the dacoits became mad with the Lord's name. That forest became the grove of bliss. From that day, Panta Ora Kaupina. He became the best devotee, skillful at knowledge, giving up sinful activity by the Lord's mercy. Panta would always dance about chanting the name. While chanting the name, tears flowed. The new sannyasi became mad with bliss. All the dacoits in the forest gave up their sinful acts and chanted the name. Together they became mad with bliss in the forest. Attached to the Lord, they all gave up their sinful acts. Having purified Panta Bhila, the Lord left floating in bliss. His body, thin from not eating, could not move. The Lord then gave the name, going house to house. The people of that place spoke indistinctly. Still Chaitanya distributed the name. The people of that place spoke indistinctly. Still Chaitanya distributed the name. My Lord had no desire. When a person was going somewhere with goods and saw the Lord once, that person had no power to move. How can I describe the power of the Lord? He cut the dam on the ocean of bhakti. The ocean of bhakti increased and flooded the place. The sannyasis, the dharaveshas, and detached devotees, the aulas and baulas, danced in the yard. Hare Krishna, I just refer to what is aulas and baulas. I know about the bowls, but still I referred. So it says the Aulas, Baulas, Saints, and Dharavesha share the same philosophy, which directly descends from the Sahajayana Tantric Buddhist tradition. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has described them, the upper sampradayas, as the Aula, Baula, Kartabhaja, Neda, Dharavesha, Sani, Sahajiya, Saki, Beki, Smarta, okay, etc. like that. I hope you all of you got an idea. Yare? The sannyasis, excuse me, the sannyasis, Dharaveshas and detached devotees, Aulas and Baulas danced in the yard. The Lord, mad with the name, fell on the ground overwhelmed with choked voice. The Lord, mad with the name, fell on the ground overwhelmed with choked voice. He remained unconscious sometimes with hair standing on end like a kadamba. The Lord, mad with the name, fell on the ground overwhelmed. The Lord, mad with the name, fell on the ground overwhelmed with choked voice. He remained unconscious sometimes with hair standing on end like a kadamba. I remain unconscious sometimes with hair standing on end like a kadamba. His eyes were half closed as if dead. No one had seen such an astonishing condition. He fell down. No one had seen half closed as if dead. No one had seen such an astonishing condition. He fell down unaware of the thorns. He was not aware of how and when he became mad. He went to the base of a tree and fasted without eating. For 3 days, he went to the base of a tree and fasted without eating. Tears flowed down his chest. Though he called 100 times, he did not speak like a madman. Sometimes his voice choked up and he remained naked. Sometimes his voice choked up and he remained naked. He with care took me on his lap. On the 4th day, one young woman came, treated him as a guest and gave some wheat flour. An old woman brought milk. An old woman brought milk. The Lord prepared a meal from the flour mixed with the milk. There was a temple 3 kroshas away. There was a linga there called Girishwara, established by Brahma. People said that Vishwakarma had built the temple. Called Girishwara, established by Brahma. People said that Vishwakarma had built the temple. Brahma worshipped Shiva personally. There was a huge bilva tree there. The full path was cooled by the spreading branches. He heard that the tree did not give fruit. Going there, I saw this. This is an astonishing story. He heard that the tree did not give fruit. Going there, I saw this. This is an astonishing story. The temple was surrounded on 3 sides by mountains. The bilva tree was in the south side. The Lord plucked leaves from the tree with his own hands. Folding his hands, he became overwhelmed with prema for Shiva. Mad with prema, he fell with force on the ground. Sometimes he laughed and sometimes wept like a madman. Tears fell constantly onto his chest. His hair stood on end and he became almost stunned. One cannot describe his astonishing prema. Without any desire, the Lord madly chanted the Lord's name. He spent 2 days in Shiva's abode. He spent 2 days in Shiva's abode. On the third day, sannyasi with matted hair came from the peak of the mountain to see. This excellent sannyasi had taken a vow of silence. He worshipped and returned to the mountain top. He had no clothing on his limbs. Seeing this renounced person, one could understand that he was renounced. The Lord regained consciousness. I related all concerning this sannyasi. Hearing about the sannyasi, Gauranga, gazing at the mountain, ran towards it. Astonished, I ran after him. Finally, I arrived there, climbed the mountain, and saw that sannyasi at the base of a tree. Finally, I arrived there, climbed the mountain, and saw that sannyasi at the base of a tree. He had no clothing or anything else. I stood there next to Chaitanya. The sannyasi was absorbed in meditation with no external consciousness. Anyone who saw him became most fortunate. Politely, the Lord spoke a few words. The sannyasi did not break his meditation. Folding his hands, the Lord began reciting prayers. The sannyasi then began to glance around. Sannyasi then began to glance around. Seeing the Lord, the sannyasi laughed, having great bliss in his mind. I do not know why the sannyasi laughed. Then the Lord sat beside the sannyasi. The two detached sannyasis met. The sannyasi desired to welcome the Lord as his guest. He brought and offered a fruit called paratha. The Lord took 2 of the fruits and gave me 4 fruits to eat. Since it was not prasada, I did not accept. Hearing this, the Lord made it into prasada and gave it to me. The paratha fruit was as sweet as nectar. Eating it, my heart became unsteady. This sinful person became very greedy. I looked at the Lord's fruit constantly. The Lord laughed at this and gave his own 2 fruits to me. Frightened in my mind, how could I eat the fruit? Suddenly I thought about Hanuman and various things. Chaitanya laughed and said, "Oh Govinda, the seed will not stick in your throat. Do not be deceptive in eating prasada." A very strong desire to eat the fruit arose, but fearing obstruction from the seeds, I was worried. When the Lord spoke what was on his mind, I rolled at his feet, putting aside the fruit. Finally, on the Lord's order, I ate the fruit. The sannyasi brought 2 more fruits. After eating, spreading my hands, I drank water at a waterfall in bliss. I drank the very cool, clear water from the falls, and all my limbs became cool. I drank the very cool, clear water from the falls, and my all limbs became cool. The Lord, mad with the name, developed prema. His limbs became like kadamba flowers. Overwhelmed with prema, his hair became undone. Overwhelmed with prema, his hair became undone. He could not stand on his feet. He could not stand on his feet. He cut his forehead on the stone, and blood flowed on the earth. A saliva flowed from his mouth and from his nose. The Lord became almost lifeless. Seeing this, the sannyasi developed bhakti. Falling at the Lord's feet, he began weeping. The Lord's limbs without clothing were like burned wood. His hair became loose and he breathed heavily. Tears flowed from his beard. Tears flowed over his beard. This burned pieces of wood blossomed with prema. This burned piece of wood blossomed with prema. The Lord regained consciousness, sat up, his limbs covered with dust. The sannyasi became restless. He glanced at the Lord and said, "You are the Supreme Lord." As the sannyasi's words, the Lord covered his ears with his hands. Repeatedly, the sannyasi spoke, saying, "You are not a human being." The Lord said, "You are a sannyasi. You, as a sannyasi, are my Lord. You, a sannyasi, or my Lord, you have astonishing prema for the Lord. Seeing you, this passion has become intelligent. You are without cloth, without vessels, without desire or wealth. I offer millions of respects to your feet. You are not controlled by material happiness. Seeing you, Swarga has become insignificant." The Lord then went to Tripadi town. Seeing the deity of Rama, he fell in the dust. Many Ramata devotees lived there. They were skillful at deliberation. There was one Ramata scholar named Mathura. He was famous in the town as a big logician. He approached the Lord and requested deliberation. Folding his hands, the Lord covered and spoke, "Oh, Venerable Mathura, I do not know how to argue. I am defeated by you 100 times. You are a great devotee of Rama. Worshipping you, I will attain true knowledge. You are a renounced devotee of Rama with a desire for conquest. Wearing white cloth, why do you put soot on your hands? Why do you put soot on your hands? Hearing your talks on tattva with the ear, the people may become pure by your words. I hear that you are very skillful. I hear that you are very skillful, but dry arguments have no good quality. Explaining Ishvara Tattva, Jiva Tattva, and Mayavada, develop a taste of sweet rasa. Develop a taste of sweet rasa. By this tattva, the jivas will become successful. Please speak about this, dear sir. There's no goal in many arguments for defeating others. Mercifully explain fine tattva to me. The Lord said, chant the name of the Lord always. The Lord said, chant the name of the Lord always. Chaitanya became joyful. Chaitanya became joyful, intoxicated with the name. Where was his cloth? Where was his upper cloth? His hair stood on end. He breathed deeply. He fell with force on the ground. He became unconscious, almost completely stunned. Many devotees of Rama began to dance in ecstasy around the Lord. Someone said, the sannyasi is not a human. Someone fell at his feet, rolling on the ground. Then he left that place. Mathura ran behind him. Smiling, he bid farewell to scholar Mathura. The Lord hurried to see Pana Narasimha. Pana Narasimha. Lord Nrsimha ate a sweet drink, Pana, there. People thus called him Pana Narasimha. The merciful Lord praised Nrsimha. Seeing this, everyone was astonished. The merciful Lord praised Nrsimha. Seeing this, everyone was astonished. Every day, the priest for Nrsimha Mahadeva, Madhavendra, every day the priest for Nrsimha Madhavendra Bhuja would come to worship Nrsimha. He brought a garland of tulsi and put it on Chaitanya's neck. Wearing the garland, the Lord chanted the Lord's name. The pujari quickly brought some prasada. The Lord received a small piece in his hand. Holding it in his hand, he offered praises to the prasada. Tears flowed from his eyes as he took the prasada. The sweet drink was brought and given to me. The sweet drink was brought and given to me. I drank and drank, filling my stomach. Nrsimha's drink was like nectar. Seeing Nrsimha, knowing him to be Brahman, the Lord, closing his eyes, chanted the Lord's name. The sweet drink was brought and given to me. I drank and drank, filling my stomach. Nrsimha's drink was like nectar. Seeing Nrsimha, knowing him to be Brahman, the Lord, closing his eyes, chanted the Lord's name. Eventually, we arrived at Vishnu Kanchi, Vishnu Kanchi, Bhava Bhuti Sheti. Carefully served Lakshmi Narayana at Vishnu Kanchi. Eventually, we arrived at Vishnu Kanchi. Bhava Bhuti Sheti carefully served Lakshmi Narayana at Vishnu Kanchi. He was the best of devotees. Lakshmi Narayana were his life. He performed daily service with devotion. He spent much money on the service. His wife daily washed the temple. The best of devotees was busy in serving. The best of devotees was busy in serving. Daily there was sweet rice measuring 2 manas. He was indifferent to taking prasada. Gauranga, seeing the deities of Lakshmi and Narayana, offered respects and offered profuse verses in praise. 6 kroshas from Lakshmi and Narayana was Trikala Ishvara, Shiva, near the boundary. Shiva had a golden cloth measuring 4 hands. 6 kroshas from Lakshmi Narayana was Trikala Ishwara Shiva near the boundary. Shiva had a golden cloth measuring 4 hands. Seeing Shiva, the Lord was astonished. From there, the Lord went to see Pakshagiri. From there, the Lord went to see Pakshagiri. At the base of the mountain was the Pakshatirtha Badra river. At the base of the mountain, Gauranga stayed at this place, begging. He ate champi fruit. He slept at the base of a tree. In the night, a tiger attacked. Seeing the roaring tiger, my Gaurachandra laughed and laid a trap for the Lord's name. Laughed and laid a trap of the Lord's name. Hearing the Lord's name, the tiger pulled up its tail, turned, and bounded off to a forest. Seeing the astonishing power with my own eyes, I smeared his foot dust on my head. From Bhadra river, 5 kroshas distant, was a place called Kalatirtha, where Varaha of astonishing form sported. The sage just became blissful on seeing this form. Seeing the form, the Lord offered respects. One priest was put a garland on the Lord's neck. One priest put a garland on the Lord's neck with hair standing on end. The Lord received prasada flowers. His body trembled and tears flowed from his eyes. The tears shot out of it as if from a syringe. The tears shot out as if from a syringe. Overwhelmed, the Lord wept profusely. Five kroshas south was Sandhi-tirtha. The Lord journeyed there with me following behind 2 rivers, the Nanda. Hare Krishna, I would like to end here. Thank you so much.